the previous video, we learned about decimal numbers and their correlation to fraction. We have calculated the price of our favorite chocolate in the supermarket. Our next journey now is to learn about all the other types of decimals. Type of decimal numbers. There are mainly two types of decimal numbers, terminating and non-terminating decimals. Terminating decimals are decimals with a finite number of digits after the decimal point. If the final remainder in the long division method is 0, then the fraction is a terminating decimal. Let's take 1 over 8 in rational numbers as an example. When we divide 1 by 8, we get 0 as a remainder. Hence, 0.125 is the terminating decimal number that has a finite number of digits. That is, 3 numbers after the decimal point. Now let's take another number, 1 over 3. Now, if we see this example, the division never ends. The remainder again and again appears to be 1, and the quotient keeps on repeating as 0.33333 and so on. Therefore, a decimal number where the number of digits after the decimal point is infinite is called a non-terminating decimal number, a decimal number that never ends. The non-terminating decimal number also has two types, repeating and non-repeating decimal numbers. When we convert 2 over 3 to a decimal number, it will be a non-terminating repeating decimal number, that is 0.666666 and so on. That will be similar to 3 over 11 and 11 over 6, which give the result of repeating decimals that never ends. They are all non-terminating repeating decimal numbers. But the case is different with the square root of 2, which is an irrational number. It will give us the answer 1.4142135623 and so on. We will soon notice that, for this case, the digits after the decimal point are non-terminating and non-repeating. Hence, this is the second type related to non-terminating decimals. The square root of 3 is also an irrational number. How about pi? Yes, definitely not the kind of pi that you expected. It is an irrational pi that gives you non-terminating, non-repeating decimal numbers. Here is a diagram showing the types of decimal numbers that we just studied. Now, how can you tell if a fraction is a terminating decimal? We can resolve the denominator of the fraction into its prime factors. If the prime factors consists of only 2 or 5, or both, then the fraction will absolutely be a terminating decimal. This will be super helpful when you're encountering a large fraction and not sure if the remainder of the long division ever yields 0. Keep in mind that the fraction should be in its simplest form before we start the factorization. Once simplified, you can factorize the denominator and determine the type of decimal. Let's say we have one great fraction. This fraction is already in its simplest form. Before dividing the number, let's see if the fraction will be terminating or non-terminating decimal number. Factorize the denominator so it will be as follows. You can see that the prime factors of the denominator only consists of 2 and 5, without any other number, which means that this fraction will be a terminating decimal number. Conveniently, you also have the information about when the decimal number will terminate. It's done by checking which of the two numbers have the highest power. Since 5 has the highest power, 5 to the power of 9, then the decimal number will terminate after 9 decimal places. 1.7920136696. In case of a non-terminating repeating decimal, the highest power of either 2 or 5 shows when the numbers after the decimal place start to repeat itself, instead of yielding 0 in terminating decimals. If the denominator prime factors only have other numbers beside 2 or 5, this concept won't be applicable. So for this fraction, at which number the first numbers after the decimal place start to repeat itself? Comment below.